My sister said, my husband, I was just with him for his wealth. I told her husband she was just with him for his brother. You know that feeling when your entire world just stops? When one single sentence shatters everything you thought you knew. For me, it was my husband Tristan's calm, level voice, barely concealing a tremor of absolute fury, as he said, "Your sister just told me you only married me for my money." I swear, I almost rear-ended the car in front of me right then and there. My own sister, accusing me of that? The sheer, gut-wrenching betrayal hit me like a physical blow. But that wasn't even the worst part. What she said after that, what she was about to do to my parents, that's what truly sent me spiraling. My hand was shaking so badly I had to pull over into a parking lot. "Tristan, you know that's not." "I know, Heather. I know." His voice was still steady, but now it was laced with something colder, something that made my blood run cold. "I'm not calling because I believe her. I'm calling because of what she said when she left." Left? Oh God, I didn't think this could get any worse. But Tristan was about to prove me completely wrong. "What did she say?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "She said, your parents deserve to know what kind of daughter they raised. She said she's going over there right now to tell them the truth about you." My breath hitched. My parents, my mother, who I'd spent years rebuilding a relationship with after the absolute chaos of my childhood. My father, who just last Christmas finally told me he was proud of the woman I'd become. Dixie was about to walk into their house and tell them their daughter was a fraud, a gold digger, that everything I'd painstakingly built, the degree I worked 3 jobs to pay for, the career I'd clawed my way up in, the marriage I cherished with every fiber of my being, it was all a lie. How long ago did she leave? I choked out, already pulling back onto the road, cutting off a minivan without a second thought. 5 minutes, maybe 10. Their house was 20 minutes from Tristan's office, 15 from where I was now. If I ran every yellow light, if I pushed this car to its absolute limit, I pressed the gas harder, my heart slamming against my ribs. I'm going to beat her there. Heather, I have to. I have to get there first. My voice cracked, and I hated it. "I'll meet you there," Tristan said, his voice now firm, resolved. "I'm leaving now." I hung up, and I drove. I beat Dixie by maybe 4 minutes. Pulling into my parents' driveway, the sight of her car not being there yet made me almost collapse with sheer relief. I had time. Not much, but enough. Enough to warn them. Enough to get ahead of whatever twisted narrative she was planning to unleash. I burst through the front door. My parents were in the kitchen. Dad was engrossed in his tablet. Mom was meticulously wiping down an already sparkling clean counter, a sure sign she was anxious about something. They both looked up, surprise etched on their faces. I never just showed up like this anymore. "Heather." Mom set down her rag, her brow furrowing. "What are you doing here?" I took a deep, shaky breath. I needed to be calm. I needed to be strategic. Something happened with Dixie and Tristan. "I wanted to talk to you before." Mom's face changed instantly. Her eyes went hard. Her mouth pressed into that thin, disapproving line I remembered so well from childhood. "What did you do to upset her?" I blinked. What did I do? My stomach dropped. "I didn't. I'm trying to tell you," Dad sighed, setting down his tablet with a clatter. "Here we go. What is it this time?" I hadn't even finished a sentence. I hadn't even gotten to the point. And already I was the defendant. Already I was the problem. A cold, heavy dread settled in my stomach. 20 years, and nothing had changed. In this house, Dixie was the one who got upset, and Heather was the one who caused it. That was the rule. That had always been the rule. I opened my mouth to try again, but the front door swung open. Dixie walked in. She was crying, shaking. Mascara streamed down her cheeks, and her hands trembled as she clutched her purse to her chest like a shield. The performance was absolutely flawless. Mom rushed over immediately. Dixie, honey, what's wrong? What happened? She wrapped her arms around her, guiding her to the kitchen table, shooting me a furious look over her shoulder, as if I'd magically conjured this entire scene. Dad stood up, hovering nearby, his face a mask of concern. Sweetheart, are you okay? Do you need water? Sit down, sit down. I tried to interject, to reclaim some shred of sanity. Let me finish what I was saying. Mom whipped around, her eyes blazing. Can't you see she's upset? For once in your life, stop making everything about you. She might as well have punched me. I stood there, mouth agape, while my parents fussed over Dixie, getting her water, rubbing her back, murmuring comforting words. And Dixie? She just sat there, soaking it all up, tears streaming, looking so fragile and wounded you'd think someone had died. Finally, she took a shaky breath, looking up at our parents with those wet, red-rimmed eyes. I didn't want to say anything. She whispered, her voice small and broken. I've been carrying this for so long and I can't anymore. Mom squeezed her hand. You can tell us anything, sweetheart. Whatever it is, we're here. Dixie glanced at me, just for a second, and in that fleeting moment, I saw something flash behind the tears. Something cold, something satisfied. Then she looked back at our parents, her voice cracking perfectly. Heather told me she only married Tristan for his money. She laughed about it, said she'd finally made it out. She wiped her face with the back of her hand. I didn't want to believe it either. I had never heard silence that loud. I watched my parents' faces change, watched them look at me like I was a stranger, like I was exactly who they'd always suspected I was. That's a lie, I said. My voice came out harder than I intended. That's a complete lie. I never said that. I never said anything like that. Dixie shook her head sadly. I didn't want to believe it either, Heather. But you said it. You laughed about how easy it was to get him to fall for you. You said you'd never have to worry about money again. That never happened. I was almost shouting now. I pulled out my phone, scrolling frantically. Look at my bank account. This is money I saved before I ever met Tristan. 3 jobs through college. Student loans I paid off myself. This is my salary from my job that I got on my own merit. I shoved the phone toward my mother. Look at this. I built this myself. I don't need anyone's money. Mom didn't even glance at the screen. She just looked at me with an expression of tired disappointment, like I was a child trying to lie her way out of trouble. Dad waved his hand dismissively. Anyone can fake numbers, Heather. You always were good at making yourself look like the victim. The words made me physically sick. I had receipts. I had proof. And they didn't matter. They didn't matter because my parents had already decided what they believed. They decided before I even walked through the door. Then the front door opened again. Tristan. He must have broken every speed limit to get here this fast. He took in the scene quickly. Dixie crying at the table, my parents hovering over her, me standing alone with my phone in my hand. His jaw clenched. He walked straight to me and put his hand on my back. I came as fast as I could. What did I miss? Dixie told them I married you for your money, I said, my voice flat. She says I confessed it to her, that I laughed about it. Tristan's face hardened. He turned to my parents. That's insane. I've been married to Heather for 3 years. I watched her stress over her own bills. I watched her refuse to let me help her pay off her student loans. She insisted on splitting everything down the middle, even when I told her she didn't have to. She has never once asked me for money. Not once. Mom shook her head, slowly, her eyes full of pity. She's got you fooled, sweetheart. She's good at that. Tristan stared at her. I'm sorry. What? Dad stood up from the table and walked toward my husband. He didn't even look at me. It was like I wasn't in the room anymore. Son, I'm going to give you some advice. Divorce her. Get out while you still can, before she bleeds you dry. I stepped between them, physically put my body between my father and my husband. Stop! You don't get to talk to my husband about my marriage like I'm not standing right here. This is my life. He knows me better than you ever did. Dad kept his eyes on Tristan, like I hadn't spoken, like I was furniture. She did this to us too, he said. She made us think she'd changed. We actually thought she'd grown out of all that drama from when she was young. But people don't change. Not really. I felt something shift inside me. Something that had been holding on for years. Finally let go. Drama. I repeated, the word tasting bitter on my tongue. Is that what you call it? Mom's face tightened. Heather, don't start. No, I said, my voice rising. I want to understand. What drama are you talking about, Mom? What exactly did I do that was so unforgivable? Mom stood up from the table. Her voice was quiet, which somehow made it worse. You know what I remember? I remember you standing in our kitchen when you were 16 years old, and you looked at me and your father and you said, "You're bad parents. You don't know how to raise kids." She let that sit. The words hung in the air like smoke. We forgave you for that, she continued. We let you back into this family. We watched you build your little life, and we were proud of you. And now I find out you've been lying to that man from the day you met him. She shook her head. You always had to make everything into a catastrophe. Couldn't just be part of this family without tearing it apart. Had to drag everyone through your drama and act like you were the only one suffering. She looked at Tristan. Now she's doing the same thing to you. I stood there and let the words wash over me, and something clicked into place. Something I should have seen years ago. These weren't parents who got fooled by Dixie. These weren't parents who were confused or misled. These were parents who had been waiting for permission to stop pretending they'd forgiven me, waiting for an excuse to go back to treating me like the problem child, the difficult one, the daughter who saw too clearly and said too much. Dixie didn't trick them. She just gave them the key to a door they'd been standing in front of for 20 years. I took Tristan's hand. We're leaving. I walked toward the front door, but I stopped in front of Dixie. She looked up at me with those tear-stained cheeks and that wounded expression that I now knew was pure performance. I kept my voice low, calm, cold. I don't know why you're doing this, Dixie, but I'm going to find out. Her eyes went wide. Her jaw clenched. A bead of sweat formed at her hairline. For just a second, the mask slipped, and I saw something underneath. Fear. Real fear. I didn't know what it meant yet, but I saw it. And I was going to find out what she was hiding. I walked out of my parents' house with my husband beside me. Behind us, I could hear my mother calling my name, telling me I was being dramatic, telling me I was proving her point. I didn't look back. The relationship I'd spent years rebuilding was ash. But I wasn't broken. I wasn't defeated. Dixie had something to hide. Something that scared her enough to make her destroy my life just to keep it buried. And I was going to dig until I found it. The car was silent for the first 5 minutes. I couldn't stop shaking. Tristan kept both hands on the wheel, his knuckles white, his jaw so tight I could see the muscle jumping. He was the first one to speak. They didn't even look at the bank statements. His voice was low and hard. Your mother didn't glance at the screen. Your father waved it off like you were showing him a coupon. They didn't want to know the truth, Heather. They wanted permission to treat you like garbage again. And Dixie handed it to them on a silver platter. I pressed my palms against my eyes. I could still hear my mother's voice. You're bad parents. You don't know how to raise kids. 20 years. And she'd been saving that, waiting to throw it back in my face. And Dixie, Tristan continued, his anger building, crying on cue, shaking like a leaf. That was a performance. I've seen better acting in car commercials. She had that lie ready. She practiced it. She knew exactly what she was going to say and exactly how she was going to say it. He slammed his palm against the steering wheel. What kind of person does that to their own sister? I didn't have an answer. That was the part one couldn't wrap my head around. Dixie and I weren't best friends, no, but we were family. We had history. I'd held her hair back when she got food poisoning at her bachelorette party. I'd helped her pick out her wedding dress. I'd shown up for every birthday, every holiday, every milestone. And she repaid me by trying to blow up my marriage and turn my parents against me. But why? I said out loud, what does she gain from this? Even if my parents believe her, even if she destroys my reputation with them, what does she get? Tristan was quiet for a second. Then he glanced at me. I've been thinking about that. And there's something I never told you, because I thought I was imagining it. The way Dixie acts around Cameron, Andy's brother. He glanced at me to make sure I was following. Andy was Dixie's husband. I've noticed it for a while. She's different when he's in the room. She finds reasons to sit next to him. She laughs too hard at his jokes. She's always volunteering to help him with stuff. I frowned. Cameron? I barely know him. He's at family stuff sometimes, but we've never really talked. Tristan nodded. Exactly. You barely notice him. But Dixie? She notices every time he walks through a door. I've seen it at barbecues, at holiday dinners, at Andy's birthday last year. The second Cameron shows up, Dixie transforms. She's louder, more animated. She touches her hair more. He shook his head. I told myself I was reading into it. But after today, I don't think I was. I sat with that for a moment. Dixie and Cameron. It didn't make sense. Dixie was married to Andy. She'd been married to Andy for years. They had a house together, a life together. You think she's capable of cheating? I asked, the words feeling foreign. Tristan scoffed. After what I just watched her do to you, I think she's capable of anything. He reached over and took my hand. His grip was firm. Steady. We're going to figure out what she's hiding, together. Whatever game she's playing, we're going to find out the rules. I squeezed his hand back. Okay, let's start with Andy. We pulled up to Andy and Dixie's house 20 minutes later. The lights were on downstairs. Andy's truck was in the driveway, but Dixie's car was gone. She was probably still at my parents' house, basking in her twisted victory. How do you want to play this? Tristan asked, putting the car in park. Careful, I said. I don't want to blow up his life until we know what we're dealing with. Got it. I'll follow your lead, but if he knows something, I'm pushing. We walked up to the front door and I knocked. Andy answered in a t-shirt and sweatpants, a beer in one hand and confusion all over his face. Heather? Tristan. He looked between us. What are you guys doing here? I kept my voice light. We were in the area. Thought we'd stop by. Is Dixie home? No. She went to your parents' place a few hours ago. Said something about needing to talk to them about. He stopped, studied my face. What's going on? Tristan stepped in. Can we come in? We need to talk. Andy's confusion deepened, but he stepped aside. We followed him into the living room and sat on the couch while he dropped into an armchair across from us. You're scaring me, Andy said. Is someone hurt? Is it Dixie? Dixie's fine, I said. Physically, at least. But something happened today, and we're trying to understand it. We were hoping you could help us. Andy took a long pull from his beer. Help you? How? Tristan leaned forward. How are things between you and Dixie? Honestly. Andy let out a hollow laugh. That's a loaded question. He stared down at the bottle in his hands. Things are, I don't know. Fine. I guess we're fine. Fine doesn't sound fine. Tristan said. Andy was quiet for a moment. She's been different for years. I don't know how to explain it. Sometimes I feel like I'm living with a roommate, not a wife. She's always somewhere else in her head. Even when she's sitting right next to me, she's not really there. Different how? I asked gently. Distant. Checked out. He shrugged. I try to plan date nights, and she always has a reason to cancel. I suggest a weekend trip, and suddenly she's got a headache, or she's too tired, or something came up at work. I ask her if she's happy and she says yes, but it doesn't reach her eyes. He took another drink. I keep thinking I'm doing something wrong, like maybe I'm not exciting enough or successful enough or whatever enough. But I don't know how to fix something when I don't even know what's broken. My chest tightened. Andy was a good man, kind, loyal, and he'd been blaming himself for years for something that was never his fault. When did it start? Tristan asked. The distance. Andy thought about it. I don't know. It's hard to pinpoint. Maybe it was always there and I just didn't notice at first. He paused, frowning. Actually, that's not true. Early on, she was different. Warmer, more present. But then it's like something shifted and she just retreated. He went quiet, his eyes unfocused, like he was scrolling through memories, looking for a pattern he'd missed. Then his face changed. You know what's weird, though? And he said, slowly, she's not like that with Cameron. Tristan and I both went absolutely still. What do you mean? Tristan asked carefully. My brother. When Cameron's around, she's, I don't know, alive. That's the only word for it. Andy shook his head like he was only now hearing himself. She laughs more, talks more. She remembers every detail of his life, his job, his hobbies, his schedule. She insisted we drive 2 hours to his housewarming party last spring, even though I had a work deadline. But when my buddy from college came to town, she suddenly had a migraine and couldn't come to dinner. He set his beer down and rubbed his face with both hands. I never really thought about it before, not like this. But when Cameron needs help with something, she's in the car before I finish the sentence. When I need help with something, she's got 100 excuses. Tristan glanced at me. I gave him a tiny nod. Andy, Tristan said, has Dixie ever said anything about her feelings for Cameron? Anything that felt like more than just being a good sister-in-law? Andy's face hardened. What are you asking me? We're asking because… No. Andy stood up so fast his chair scraped against the floor. No, you don't get to come into my house and ask about my marriage and then imply my wife has feelings for my brother. That's insane. Dixie is a lot of things, but she's not. She wouldn't. He was pacing now, running his hands through his hair. You're wrong. Whatever you think, you know you're wrong. Dixie loves me. She married me. We have a life together. 6 years. 6 years of marriage. And you're going to stand there and tell me she's been pining after Cameron this whole time? That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. Andy, Tristan started. And even if she did have some kind of thing for him, which she doesn't, what does that have to do with anything? Why are you here? Why are you asking me this? His voice cracked. What happened today that made you drive to my house and blow up my entire life? I stood up slowly. Andy, please sit down. We need to tell you what happened. Then tell me. He was shouting now. Stop dancing around it and just say it. Dixie went to Tristan today, I said, keeping my voice steady. She told him I only married him for his money. She said I confessed it to her. That I laughed about finally making it out. Andy froze. What? It's a lie. All of it. I never said that. I've never even thought that. But Dixie told Tristan. And then she went to my parents and told them the same thing. My voice wavered, but I pushed through. My parents believed her. They told Tristan to divorce me. They said I'd been fooling everyone for years. Your wife walked into my parents' house crying and shaking and put on a performance that destroyed my relationship with my family in 20 minutes. Andy's face went white. That's… Dixie wouldn't. We watched her do it, Tristan said, his voice hard. Crying on cue, trembling like a victim. She had the whole thing rehearsed. She knew exactly what to say and exactly how to say it. Andy lowered himself back into the chair, like his legs couldn't hold him anymore. He stared at the floor. Why? He finally said, his voice barely a whisper. Why would she do that? That's what we're trying to figure out, I said. That's why we're here. That's why we asked about Cameron. Because we don't understand why Dixie would try to destroy my marriage unless there's something else going on. Something we can't see yet. Andy was quiet for a long time. When he looked up, his eyes were wet. I'm coming with you, Andy said suddenly. Wherever you're going next, I'm coming. Tristan shook his head. I don't think that's a good idea. Not yet. If Dixie comes home and you're not here, she'll know something's wrong. We need you to act normal until we figure out what we're dealing with. Andy got mad. So, I'm supposed to just sit here and pretend everything's fine? Pretend my wife didn't just try to blow up my sister-in-law's life? For now, I said. Just for now. We'll tell you everything we find out. I promise. Andy stared at the wall. The silence stretched so long I thought he wasn't going to respond. Then he looked at me with eyes that were hollow. Lost. I don't even know who I'm married to, he said quietly. I thought I did, but I don't. We left Andy's house in silence. I kept seeing his face, the confusion giving way to anger, giving way to something worse. That hollow look in his eyes when he said he didn't know who he was married to. That was brutal, Tristan said finally. He had no idea about any of it. He knew something was wrong, I said. He just couldn't name it. All those things he listed, the distance, the cancelled plans, the way she lights up around Cameron, he's been noticing for years. He just didn't want to see what it meant. And now we handed him a box full of evidence and asked him to look. Tristan glanced at me, but we still don't have the why. We know Dixie's got something going on with Cameron, or at least in her head she does. We know her marriage is hollow, but what does any of that have to do with you? That's why we need to talk to Cameron. Cameron lived in an apartment complex about 15 minutes away. Tristan called him on the way and said we needed to talk about something important. Cameron sounded confused, but agreed to meet us. He buzzed us up and met us at his door with a puzzled expression. Heather. Tristan. He shook Tristan's hand and gave me an awkward half-hug. This is unexpected. Is everything okay? His apartment was clean and simple. Bachelor furniture. A gaming setup in the corner. He offered us water and sat down across from us, looking genuinely lost. So, what's going on? You sounded serious on the phone. Tristan didn't waste time. We need to ask you about Dixie. Cameron's eyebrows shot up. Dixie? What about her? How did you two meet? I asked. Cameron looked surprised by the question. Dixie? We met years ago, before she and Andy got together, actually. We worked at the same company for a few months. We'd grab lunch sometimes, talk in the break room. She was cool. He shrugged. Then I introduced her to Andy at a company happy hour, and they hit it off. Rest is history. Tristan and I exchanged a look. So you knew her first? Tristan said slowly. And then you introduced her to your brother? Yeah. I thought they'd be good together. Andy was going through a dry spell, and Dixie was single and seemed like his type. Cameron smiled at the memory. Honestly, I felt like a pretty good matchmaker when they started dating. 6 years married now. I take full credit. The smile faded when he saw our faces. Why? What's going on, Cameron? Tristan said directly. Does Dixie have feelings for you? Cameron's face went through 50 different moods all at once. Confusion, then discomfort, then something that looked like a recognition he'd been actively avoiding. There have been moments, he admitted slowly. Things I brushed off. The way she hugs me too long. The way she always sits next to me at dinners. The way she looks at me sometimes. He shook his head. But she's married to my brother. Why would she marry Andy if he stopped? And that's when it hit me. The timeline. Cameron met Dixie first. They worked together, had lunch together. Then he introduced her to Andy, and she married him anyway. Oh my God, I said quietly. She married Andy to stay close to you. The words came out like I was hearing them for the first time myself, because I was... Cameron's face went through something ugly. First confusion, then understanding, then disgust. No, That's sick. That's my brother. She's been married to my brother for 6 years. She's been sleeping in his bed, eating dinner with him, being his wife. His voice cracked, and the whole time she was what? Waiting. Waiting for me to notice her. Waiting for me to make a move. He stood up and paced across the room, his face red. I introduced them. I set them up. I thought I was doing something good. And she used it. She used Andy to get to me. She's been playing both of us this entire time. He turned back to us, his face inflamed. Does Andy know? Does he know his wife married him because she couldn't have me? We just came from his house, Tristan said. He knows something's wrong. He doesn't know all of it yet. Cameron let out a sound that was half laugh, half groan. 6 years. 6 years of holidays and birthdays and family dinners. And she's been sitting there thinking about me while my brother holds her hand. He looked physically ill. That's disgusting. That's the most disgusting thing I've ever heard. We couldn't console him no matter how hard we tried. We just had to let him process it all on his own. We left Cameron's apartment with the picture almost complete. In the car, Tristan was quiet for a minute. Then he said, So Dixie's been in love with Cameron for years. She married Andy to stay close to him. Cameron never felt the same way. Her whole marriage is a lie. And she's miserable, I added. Andy said she's been distant for years. Checked out. She's trapped in a life she never wanted, waiting for a man who's never going to want her back. Tristan nodded slowly. Then he looked at me. But you're not. I frowned. What? You're not trapped. You're not miserable. You didn't marry me for access to someone else. His voice was careful, like he was working something out. You married me because you love me and we're actually happy. She can't stand it, I said slowly. She's been living a lie for 6 years, watching Cameron not want her. Stuck in a marriage that means nothing. And then she looks at me and you and sees everything she doesn't have. Tristan finished my thought. Real love. A real marriage. Happiness she'll never get because the man she wants doesn't even see her. We sat with that for a moment. I could feel the shape of it now. The why. It was right there, just out of reach. I think I understand, I said quietly. But I need to hear her say it. Tristan looked at me. What are you thinking? I'm thinking it's time to have a conversation with my sister. I pulled out my phone and texted Andy. Is Dixie home yet? The response came back in seconds. Yeah, just got back. Why? I typed back. We know why she lied. We're coming over. Tristan glanced at me as he started the car. You sure you want to do this tonight? I've never been more sure of anything. The drive to Andy's house felt shorter than before. Maybe because I knew exactly what I was walking into this time. No more confusion. No more questions. Just answers I was going to drag out of my sister whether she wanted to give them or not. Andy opened the door before we even knocked. His face was tight, jaw clenched. He'd been waiting. She's in the living room, he said quietly. She doesn't know you're coming. Good. I walked past him into the house. Dixie was on the couch, shoes off, scrolling through her phone like she didn't have a care in the world. Like she hadn't just blown up my entire life a few hours ago. She looked up when I walked in, and her face shifted. Surprise first, then something that looked almost like amusement. Heather? Couldn't stay away. She set her phone down and crossed her arms. Let me guess, you came to tell me I'm wrong. To explain yourself. To beg me to take it back. She shook her head with this little, smug smile. It won't work. Mom and Dad know the truth now. Everyone knows. You're right, I said. Everyone's about to know the truth. Something flickered across her face. Tristan came in behind me and stood by the door. Andy moved into the room and positioned himself where he could see both of us. Dixie looked between us, and her smile faltered. What is this? This is me telling you what I know. I kept my voice calm, steady. You knew Cameron first. You worked at the same company. You grabbed lunch together, talked in the break room. You had feelings for him. Dixie's face changed. The amusement drained out of it. What are you talking about? Cameron introduced you to Andy, his brother, and you married Andy anyway. I watched her carefully. You married him to stay close to Cameron. That's insane, Dixie said, but her voice had gone thin. That's absolutely insane. I married Andy because I love him. You've been distant for years, Andy said from across the room. His voice was quiet, but it cut through everything. You cancel every date night. You're never present, but when Cameron needs something, you're out the door before I finish the sentence. Dixie whipped around to face him. Andy, you can't possibly believe. I asked you once if you were happy, Andy continued, his eyes fixed on her. You said yes, but it never reached your eyes. I thought I was the problem. I thought I wasn't enough. Turns out I was never even the point. That's not true. Dixie stood up. I love you. I married you. I've been with you for 6 years. 6 years of sitting next to Cameron at every dinner, I said, stepping closer. 6 years of remembering his birthday, his hobbies, his schedule. 6 years of driving 2 hours to his housewarming party while Andy had a work deadline. 6 years of waiting for him to notice you. Dixie's eyes were wild now, darting between me and Andy and Tristan, looking for an exit that wasn't there. This is ridiculous. You're twisting everything. I was just being a good sister-in-law. Say it, Dixie, my voice was hard. Tell Andy why you really married him. Tell him what you've been waiting for. I haven't been waiting for anything. Her voice pitched higher. This is insane. You're all insane. I'm a good wife. I've been a good wife for 6 years. Then why does Cameron have hundreds of texts from you? Tristan asked, his voice cutting through her bluster. Random articles checking in, remembering every detail of his life. Because I'm friendly. Because I'm a good sister-in-law. Is that a crime now? Dixie was pacing now, her hand shaking. So what? So what if I'm nice to him? So what if I show up for family? That doesn't mean anything. You hug him too long, Andy said quietly. You always sit next to him. You light up when he walks in the room. I've seen it for years. I just didn't want to believe it. Andy, stop. Dixie spun toward him, her eyes wild. You're letting them poison you against me. They're lying. Heather's always been jealous of me. She's always wanted to tear me down. Jealous of what? I stepped closer to her. Your hollow marriage? Your checked-out husband? The man you've been waiting 6 years for who doesn't even know you exist. Shut up. Dixie's face was red now, tears streaming. You don't know anything. You don't know what it's like. You don't understand. Then explain it to me. I was in her face now. Explain why you married Andy. Explain why you've been obsessing over Cameron. Explain why you tried to destroy my life today. I wasn't trying to destroy your life. You told my husband I married him for money. You told my parents. You stood in their kitchen crying fake tears, and you lied. It wasn't supposed to go like this. Dixie was backing up, her hands pulling at her hair. None of this was supposed to happen. I just wanted, what? Andy's voice boomed through the room. What did you want, Dixie? What have you been wanting for 6 years while I've been killing myself trying to make you happy? Dixie was cornered against the wall now, her chest heaving, her eyes darting between all of us like a trapped animal. You don't understand. None of you understand. I tried to love you, Andy. I really tried, but I couldn't. I couldn't stop thinking about who? Andy demanded. I didn't mean for it to be like this. She was sobbing now, mascara running down her face, snot dripping from her nose. I thought it would go away. I thought if I just stayed close enough, if I was patient enough, he would finally see me. Who, Dixie? I grabbed her shoulders. Say his name. Say it. I can't. Say it. Because I love him. The words exploded out of her like she'd been holding them in for years. Because she had. I love Cameron. I've always loved Cameron. From the first day I met him, I knew he was the one. And then he introduced me to Andy. And I thought if I was close enough, if I was part of his family, he would realize we were meant to be together. The room went dead silent. Dixie's chest was heaving. Her face was red, and tears were streaming down her cheeks, and she looked like someone who had just watched her whole life collapse. Because she had. Andy made a sound like he'd been punched in the stomach. Dixie spun toward him, reaching out. Andy, I didn't mean it's not what you think. You just said you love my brother. Andy's voice was barely a whisper. You've been married to me for 6 years, and you just said you love my brother. I love you too. I love both of you. It's complicated. It's not complicated. Andy stepped back from her. You married me to get close to him. That's what they're saying. And you just confirmed it. Dixie was sobbing now. I thought if I was around him enough, if I was part of his family, he would see me. He would realize we were meant to be together. I just needed more time. 6 years. Andy's voice cracked. You needed 6 years of my life, of our marriage, of me thinking something was wrong with me. He turned away from her, like he couldn't stand to look at her anymore. I should have felt satisfied. I should have felt vindicated. But all I felt was sick, and I still needed one more answer. Why me, Dixie? She looked at me through her tears, mascara running down her face just like it had at our parents' house. But this time it was real. Why go after my marriage? What did I ever do to you? Dixie laughed. It was an ugly sound. Broken. You didn't do anything, Heather. That's the problem. You didn't do anything and you got everything. What are you talking about? You married for love. She spat the word like it was poison. You found someone who actually wants you, who chose you, who looks at you like you're the only person in the room. She gestured at Tristan. He's never going to look at someone else and wish he was with them. He's never going to spend 6 years waiting for someone better to notice him. He actually loves you. Her voice broke. And I have to watch it. Every holiday, every family dinner. I have to watch you be happy while I'm stuck in this prison I built for myself, waiting for a man who doesn't even know I exist. She wiped her face with the back of her hand. Do you know what that's like? To realize you wasted your entire life on someone who will never want you, and then look across the table at your sister, who has everything you'll never have. So you tried to destroy it, I said quietly. You told Tristan I married him for money. You told our parents. You tried to make my marriage look fake. Because if your marriage was fake, then I wasn't alone. Dixie screamed. If you were just like me, if you married for money like I married for access, then I wasn't the only pathetic one. I wasn't the only one who wasted my life. We would be the same. 2 sisters who made terrible choices, and I wouldn't have to feel so. She couldn't finish. She just stood there crying, arms wrapped around herself like she was trying to hold herself together. I understood now. All of it. Dixie didn't hate me. She wasn't trying to hurt me, specifically. She just couldn't survive being the only sister with a fake marriage. If she could drag me down to her level, she wouldn't have to face what she'd done alone. But my marriage isn't fake, I said. I love Tristan. He loves me. We're happy. And nothing you say to our parents or anyone else is going to change that. Dixie looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. She had nothing left to say. Andy walked to the front door and opened it. Get out. Dixie turned to him. Andy, please. Get out of my house. I'll have your stuff sent to wherever you end up. But I want you gone tonight. Where am I supposed to go? I don't care. Andy's voice was flat, dead. Go to your parents. Go to a hotel. Go to Cameron for all I care, but you're not staying here. Not after this. Dixie looked at me one last time. I don't know what she was hoping to see. Sympathy, maybe. Some sisterly bond that would make me intervene. But I just looked back at her. She made her choice. Now, she had to live with it. She grabbed her purse and walked out the door without another word. Andy stood in the doorway watching her go. Then he closed the door and leaned his forehead against it. 6 years, he said quietly. I gave her 6 years. I'm sorry, Andy. I meant it. He was collateral damage in all of this. A good man who did nothing wrong except fall in love with the wrong woman. He turned around and looked at me and Tristan. Thank you for telling me. I needed to know. We left Andy standing in his living room, looking at the empty space where his marriage used to be. In the car, Tristan took my hand. You okay? I thought about it. My parents had disowned me. My sister had tried to destroy my life. I had spent the whole day uncovering a web of lies that went back 6 years. But I was sitting next to a man who never doubted me, who stood beside me through all of it, who loved me, actually loved me, and wasn't going anywhere. Yeah, I said, a small, genuine smile forming. I'm okay. Tristan squeezed my hand. She tried to make what we have into something ugly. She failed. She did. Dixie wanted company in her misery. Instead, she ended up completely alone. What do you guys think? Have you ever had someone try to tear down your happiness just because they couldn't find their own? I'm genuinely curious to hear your take on this.